longer any thief left. They're already gone long time ago. He just came back. And when he came back, actually, funny thing happened is there was no longer any ordinary thought left. No ordinary thought left. There was no longer there was no ordinary thought, no ordinary perception left. He was become completely enlightened. The Master had introduced the nature mind at that particular moment. So that's one story. Clear? There was also one man who asked me, he asked me about the mantra, about the pronunciation of the mantra. Was it yourself? Yes. Can you please say that, please?
Yes. You were saying that the effect of the mantra is connected with the sound.
Yes.
Not necessarily with the intention in the mind of the person who's saying, but that it doesn't matter whether the pronunciation is the Sanskrit pronunciation or the Tibetan pronunciation. Could you explain?
No. I'll tell you a story. Two stories. In 10th century AD, they came to Tibet. You see, Buddhism came in about 7th century or 8th century, you know. And 200 years after, there came a very great master, very great scholar called Atisha Dipankara. He came to Tibet. And he came as a kind of a reformer, you know, like that kind of thing. And he was the one who really started the Lojong teaching, like the tradition of the practice of bodhicitta in a kind of a practical way. He was very much the master of that. But what happened was that one day Atisha had a toothache, you know, abscess, you say? Yeah. In Tibet, there was a lot of, belief and a lot of trust in the mantras. There were different cures through mantras also. Like certain impurities, there are certain mantras or certain sutras, certain, practice were done. So when Atisha was really very, inflamed, kind of thing, they got a group of Tibetan monks to do this mantra of purification. And they were next room, and Atisha was sitting in this room, lying and sleeping, with this tooth abscess. And he could hear quite clearly the monks reciting the mantra. And the way they were reciting was atrocious. A terrible accent. And he got really amused by all this thing, he just listened. And he had initially intended to actually correct, the pronunciation. He was very determined to correct it. But then when he heard this, he was reciting. He was so funny, he just burst out laughing. He burst out laughing, and the abscess broke, and he got cured. And he said, that's a sign that the power is there. And so it's okay though. There was a story of another great yogi who was doing meditation, retreat in the end of a valley in a cave. And from that there was a stream, mountain stream flowing. And this master was following the practice of Vajrakilaya, whose mantra is Kilikilaya. But in the old text, there's a Kilikilaya sometimes written in such a way, it's sound like Chilichilaya. But it's only it's an ancient form of writing, which if you really know, if you're a scholar, you pronounce it Kilikilaya, not as Chilichilaya. But this yogi was not a scholar, he just read it literally Chilichilaya. He was saying Chilichilaya, and he was a very great master. So, but then you see the river, that flowed was saying the same sound of that mantra, Chilichilaya, Chilichilaya. And a scholar came who was a very good scholar on Sanskrit and how to pronounce mantra correctly. He came by, and he just, he stopped to drink the water, because, and he heard that the mantra, the river was saying Chili, 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 Chili. He said, this won't do. He said, I must go and correct this here. So went up, to this thing to get hold of this yogi and said, look, I think you're doing it wrong. It's not Chili Chilaya, but it's Kilikilaya. Whereupon this yogi said, I don't know anything about what is Kilikilaya or what is Chilichilaya. He said, I know this much. He took out with the Vajrakilaya there's a special a scepter or a symbol, a dagger called Purba. He had that as an object of prayer. He just took that out and he stepped into a piece of rock and went like a knife into butter, like a kind of knife into butter. He said, I don't know anything about chili or kili, but I know this much. He just stepped and went. And then the scholar didn't correct him. I think when you say sound, is that if you make the sound, I mean, the pronunciation doesn't matter so much. I mean, for example, like a Cockney way of speaking. This is English also, Canadian way of speaking, American way of speaking, Australian way of speaking. All English anyway, but it's the same word, pronounced differently, has the same kind of, you understand? You're trying to say the same thing. I think it's probably something like that, But then what I want to say is this. Yesterday, the teaching, the written material of the teaching that I read it out, stressed very much on the power of the mantra, even without knowing the meaning behind it. How power, that just to show the inherent power of the mantra. But what is important to also realize that even if you don't know the mantra, it's very powerful, but it would be more powerful if you did it first silently. Meaning, if you did the mantra without being your speech being interrupted by other conversation, other speech. That's why you do the mantras in silence. Like when you begin the mantra and until you finish a session, you don't speak. You don't, remain silently. Then there's said to be more power. Much more, 1,000 times more power. And then even more powerful is if you really knew the meaning. If you knew the meaning, and not only knew the meaning, but rested in the nature of shunyata, or the nature of vajra nature, the meditative state, the samadhi state of the deity, or whatever the particular mantra of the deity is, if you remain in that state, and with the visualization, with the practice, and then if you did the mantra, is that much more powerful, even more powerful. You understand? Now, having said that, perhaps it's time for us to conclude, is that in the tantric practice you create the visualization, as I explained already, from the state of emptiness, from out of the state of emptiness. First you dissolve everything into the emptiness of the inherent nature. From out of that a wave of compassion arises. And from out of the compassion one's own inherent wisdom mind appear in the form of a syllable. And then from that the deity is emanated, And then the main part of the practice is that to rest in the nature of the wisdom mind and to concentrate on the central of the mantra, which is visualized in the heart. And from the mantra mala, rays of light go, which purifies the environment, the beings. And until this is actualized, one continues the practice in one's mind. So this is the practice of transformation. I talked about that yesterday. Remember? And that the medium of bringing about, like the magic formula, or that which really brings is the mantra. Mantra is the medium. With the visualization, you see perception. You purify the perception. With the mantra, you purify the sound or the communication on the energy level. With the mind, then you purify. You see, understand? Those are the body, speech and mind. You do the practice, and then when practice is done, when it's finished, when you reach to the end of your particular meditation session in Tantra, such a practice is called sadhana, or duktap is a way of maturing the siddhi. When you reach to the end of it, then there is the second stage of the visualization called dzogrim. Dzog means complete, rim is stage, the completion stage or the fulfillment stage, which is at the end of that you suddenly dissolve all perception, all environment into the deity, and you, deity yourself, if you visualize, also into the seed syllable mantra, the home. And even that dissolve into the sky, just as like a rainbow dissolving into the sky. Like that you dissolve in the state of dissolution where there is no longer any form. There's neither you the visualizer, no deity to visualize, no visualization to do. And there's no, in that state of the absolute state of the state of realization of the emptiness or the shunyata, in that you rest. That's called the Dzogchen stage. The purpose of this is, the benefit of this is that, you see, by dissolving the visualization into the emptiness, one kind of, transcends, or one bypasses the possibility of being, it's kind of way to free the limitation or the wrong view, or maybe believing in the visualization as being some kind of reality, making another reality, to dissolve that. But then creating out of emptiness also is that one is not again in the state of nihilism. So the eternalism, nihilism, transcending the is and, is like yes and no. And when you go beyond the yes and no, when you begin to understand the same energy of yes and no, yes is same as no, no is same as yes, in the inherent state of things, that's called the energy of the Tantra. When existing same as non-existing, non-existing same as existing, when you begin to realize that kind of thread, both the existent and non-existent, you understand? And that's the Tantra. So, you see? So you dissolve everything into the emptiness. And in that state, then you meditate. That's you meditate. You meditate, but here your meditation is different, because having gone through the whole process of the visualization and, when you reach to the conclusion phase, your mind is already purified into the state of wisdom. And in this state, you no longer need to meditate as such. One just simply remains in that purified state of wisdom mind without having anything to do, anything to practice, because, you understand? So it's, whereas initially when you practice, it's like washing the breathing, there's meditation to calm the mind. But having reached to this, the ultimate state, the non-dual state, there is no meditation to do. But one simply remains in the state of shunyata. That's one experiences it. Yet again, then also one wakes up from that again. One cannot stay in that state of everything. One wakes up again, one has to get with, you have to get up and go and do things in everyday life, isn't it? So what is then the tantric vision in everyday life? What is the vision? Is what in vision, everyday life, when you get up, is you begin to see everything purely. As you have seen with the different understanding, with the different eye, the real reality, or you begin to see a different reality, or the reality of the on a different dimension, beyond this ordinary perception. If you have seen this seeing, this glimpse has changed your perception, so that when you begin to look into life, is no longer as solid as before. You don't regard life as so solid. You have more humor. You begin to see things more purely, so that whatever you see is the form of the deity. Whatever you see is the form of the deity doesn't mean that whatever you see is suddenly becomes the deity. Sometimes that can happen also if your visualization is very good, but it just means that everything is pure. Everything you see is as pure as the deity. Every sound is as pure as the mantra. Every thought is as pure as the wisdom mind of the deity. So one begins to realize all one's perception, thoughts, sound, appearances, everything as the what is in the sphere of the Vajra body, as the Vajra body in speech mind of the deity. And one rises in that state, one goes on in one's life, in one's post meditation state, and then one dedicates. There's the dedication. By this practice, the most famous dedication is by the power and the merit of this, may we swiftly attain the realization of like Avalokiteshvara or Padmasambhava, and whereby every single sentient being reach that state of perfection too. So that's it.